The elevator descended 2 miles beneath the Swiss Alps. President Lisa Carter stood in silence as the numbers on the display climbed higher. Around her, the emergency cabinet members shifted nervously. None of them had ever been this deep underground before. "How long has this facility existed?" asked Defense Minister Carl Brooks. His voice echoed strangely in the metal chamber. "Since 2156, Carter replied. "The year we made first contact with alien life." The elevator stopped with a soft chime. The doors opened to reveal a massive underground complex. Bright lights illuminated corridors that stretched in every direction. The air smelled of recycled atmosphere and metal. People in military uniforms and lab coats moved between rooms with quiet efficiency. "This is the Global Defense Command Center," Carter explained as they walked down the main corridor. "Everything we've done for the past 200 years has been leading to this moment." Carl looked around in amazement. "I had no idea this place existed." "Very few people did," Carter said. "The knowledge was passed down from president to president, kept secret from everyone else. Even most of the people working here don't know the full truth." They entered a conference room where dozens of people waited. Military officers, scientists, and government officials from every major nation on Earth. Their faces showed the same strain that everyone had been carrying since the Zephyrian attacks began. "Ladies and gentlemen," Carter began, "I've called you here to discuss our response to the coming invasion. Our conventional military forces have failed. Our colonies are destroyed. In 3 weeks, maybe less, the Zephyrians will attack Earth itself." General Patricia Stone, the highest-ranking military officer present, spoke first. "Madam President, our analysis shows that Earth's defenses will hold for 72 hours at most. After that, the bioweapons will begin atmospheric conversion, which means everyone on Earth will be dead within a week," added Dr. Richard Kim, the Secretary of Health. "Their conversion viruses don't just kill. They remake human tissue into something the aliens can use." Carter nodded grimly. "I know. Which is why we're going to activate something that has been waiting for over 2 centuries. She pressed a button on the conference table. The lights dimmed and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed a complex genetic sequence rotating slowly in the air. "What you're looking at is the human genome," Carter explained, "but not the version you studied in school. This is the complete human genetic code, including sequences that have been dormant for thousands of years." A woman in a lab coat stepped forward. She was in her 60s, with silver hair and intense green eyes. "My name is Dr. Helen Shaw. I've been working on this project for 30 years. What the president is showing you is humanity's true potential." Carl leaned forward. "What do you mean by true potential?" Dr. Shaw manipulated the holographic display, highlighting specific sections of the genetic code. "Human beings are not what we appear to be. Evolution didn't stop when we developed civilization. It just went underground." "Underground?" asked General Stone. "Hidden in our DNA," Shaw explained. "Sequences that only activate under extreme stress. Genetic switches that turn on when survival is threatened. Most humans never experienced the conditions needed to trigger these systems." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "What kind of conditions?" Carter asked, though she already knew the answer. "The kind we're facing now," Shaw replied. "Existential threat, the possibility of complete extinction, the death of billions of people." Shaw changed the display to show brain scans. "We've been monitoring global neurological patterns since the attacks began. The human brain is changing. Stress hormones are at levels we've never recorded. Neural pathways are forming that shouldn't exist." "You're saying the attacks are changing us?" Carl asked. "I'm saying the attacks are waking something up," Shaw corrected. "Something that has been sleeping in human DNA for millennia." Carter stood up. "Dr. Shaw, explain Project Prometheus." Shaw nodded. "For 200 years, we've been preparing for this moment. We've built facilities around the world, developed genetic modification techniques, and identified the specific sequences that need to be activated. Modified how? General Stone demanded. We can trigger the dormant genetic systems artificially, Shaw explained. Take volunteers and activate their hidden potential. Transform them into something beyond normal human limitations. The room erupted in conversation. People asked questions over each other, their voices rising with excitement and fear. What are the side effects? Dr. Kim asked. Unknown, Shaw admitted. We've run computer simulations, but we've never done a full activation on a living human being. How unknown? Carter pressed. Shaw hesitated. The volunteers might not survive the process. If they do survive, they might not be entirely human anymore. Carl slammed his hand on the table. You're talking about human experimentation on a massive scale. I'm talking about survival, Shaw shot back. The Zephyrians have bioweapons that can kill every human on Earth. Conventional military force has failed. This is our only option. General Stone studied the genetic displays. What would these modified humans be capable of? Shaw smiled grimly. Enhanced physical strength, speed, and endurance. Improved healing rates. Resistance to biological and chemical weapons. Enhanced tactical thinking and pattern recognition. And, Carter prompted, an immunity to hive mind control, Shaw finished. The Zephyrians work by suppressing individual consciousness. But the activated human genome creates a neural architecture that can't be overwhelmed. The room fell silent again. Outside, they could hear the hum of machinery and the distant sound of people working. How many volunteers would you need? Carter asked. Initially, a few hundred for the first wave, Shaw replied. If the process works, we could modify thousands more. Carl shook his head. This is insane. We're talking about changing the fundamental nature of human beings. The alternative is extinction, Carter said simply. Dr. Shaw activated another display. This one showed historical data from ancient human civilizations. Humanity has always adapted to survive. Ice ages, plagues, natural disasters, invasions. Each time we became something slightly different than we were before. But never like this, Carl protested. Never this fast, Shaw agreed. But the threat has never been this severe either. General Stone looked at the military casualty reports. What about the psychological effects? Combat stress, survivor guilt, the trauma of losing entire colonies? Those factors are actually helpful, Shaw explained. The genetic activation requires extreme emotional and physical stress. The volunteers need to be pushed to their absolute limits. You're talking about torturing people, Dr. Kim said. I'm talking about transformation, Shaw corrected. The same way a butterfly emerges from a cocoon. The process is difficult, but the result is something entirely new. Carter walked to the window that looked out over the underground facility. I've made my decision. We're going to activate Project Prometheus. Madam President, Carl began. The ethical implications. There are no ethical implications when the entire species is facing extinction. Carter interrupted. The Zephyrians have made this a war of survival. We're going to give them the fight they weren't expecting. Shaw began packing up her equipment. I'll need to contact the volunteer centers. We have facilities in North America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. People have been preparing for this moment without knowing what they were preparing for. What do you mean? General Stone asked. Military special forces, emergency responders, extreme athletes, survival experts, Shaw explained. People who have already pushed their bodies and minds to the limit. They'll have the best chance of surviving the activation process. Carter turned back to the group. Ladies and gentlemen, in 72 hours, we begin the transformation of the human species. The Zephyrians think they're fighting the same humans they've been killing for 18 months. And they're wrong? Carl asked. They're about to discover what humans become when we have nothing left to lose, Carter replied. Dr. Shaw, how long until the first volunteers are ready? Shaw checked her tablet. 48 hours for the initial. Group, 72 hours for the full first wave. Then we better get started, Carter said. Because in 3 weeks, the Zephyrians are going to learn that killing 3 billion humans wasn't victory. It was the worst mistake they could have made. The meeting ended with quiet efficiency. People filed out of the conference room, each carrying orders that would change the future of humanity. In the corridors of the underground facility, scientists and technicians prepared for the most important experiment in human history. The awakening was about to begin. Elder Mordoon arrived on the warship 3 days later. The ancient Zephyrian moved slowly through the corridors, his massive frame requiring specially widened doorways. Behind him walked 5 other council members, each representing a different, conquered species. They had come to see the humans for themselves. The humans had been moved to a larger chamber for the meeting. This room had a viewing platform where the council could observe from above, like scientists studying specimens in a laboratory. The humans sat at a metal table below, talking quietly among themselves. "They seem so ordinary," whispered Counselor Veltar, the gray-skinned being who had questioned the reports. "How can such small creatures cause such concern?" "Size means nothing," replied Elder Mordim. "The most dangerous parasites are often invisible to the naked eye." Commander Kyland stood beside the council, watching the humans through the transparent barrier. "Elder, they have been asking to speak with whoever is in charge. They claim they have important information to share." "Information? What kind of information?" "They will not say. Captain Morrison insists on speaking only to the highest authority." President Mordoom considered this. "Very well, but first we will conduct our own tests. Bring them the full conquest records. Every species we have eliminated, every world we have burned. Show them the complete power of the Confederation." The chamber lights dimmed and holographic projectors activated around the humans. Suddenly they were surrounded by 3-dimensional images of destruction on an unimaginable scale. Entire star systems appeared around them, showing the systematic elimination of 47 different species. The first images showed the early conquests. Primitive species with basic space travel, overwhelmed by Zephyrian technology. The humans watched as cities burned and populations fled in terror. The Scalinari were among the first. Vexstar's voice echoed through the chamber. "They had just developed faster-than-light travel when we found them. It took only 6 hours to destroy their entire civilization." The images shifted, showing aquatic beings dying as their oceans were poisoned. The Murthani tried to hide in the deep places of their world. We found them all. More images followed, each more horrific than the last. Gas giant cities falling into crushing atmospheres. Underground civilizations buried alive. Nomadic species hunted across empty space until none remained. Captain Morrison studied each display with the calm attention of a military analyst. He occasionally pointed out details to his crew, discussing tactical elements in quiet tones. "Look at the orbital bombardment pattern here," he said to Commander Walsh. "They're using saturation fire instead of precision strikes. Wasteful, but effective against undefended targets." Dr. Carter was taking notes on a small device she had somehow kept hidden from their captors. The psychological warfare is sophisticated. They always give populations time to see what's coming. The fear spreads faster than their actual weapons. Lieutenant Rodriguez nodded. "Classic terror tactics. Make the anticipation worse than the reality." Above them, the council watched in growing confusion and alarm. The humans were not cowering or begging. They were analyzing the recordings like students studying a textbook. "Perhaps they do not understand the scale of what they are seeing," suggested the insectoid counselor. Elder Mordun activated the communication system. "Humans, you have now seen the complete record of our expansion across this galaxy arm. 47 species, billions of individual lives, entire civilizations erased from existence. Do you comprehend what you have witnessed?" Morrison looked up toward the observation platform. "We comprehend perfectly, Elder Mordim. We're looking at approximately 300 years of systematic genocide carried out against technologically inferior opponents. You speak of genocide so calmly, Veltar said. Does the death of billions mean nothing to your species? It means a great deal, Dr. Carter replied. Every extinction is a tragedy, a loss of unique perspectives and knowledge. But we're scientists and soldiers. Our job is to understand what happened, not just to feel bad about it. And what do you understand? Mordoon asked. Morrison stood up, looking directly at the observation platform, despite not being able to see the council clearly through the barrier. We understand that you've never actually fought a war. The council chamber fell silent. Explain, Mordoon said coldly. Every conquest we just watched was against an inferior opponent, Morrison continued. Species with primitive weapons, no military tradition, no experience with interstellar warfare. You didn't fight wars, you conducted exterminations. Commander. Walsh joined Morrison at the center of the room. Your tactical approach is completely wrong for fighting an actual military force. Saturation bombardment, terror tactics, overwhelming numbers against weak defenses. These are techniques for destroying civilians, not for defeating soldiers. You dare critique our military methods? Kylenta's voice came through the speakers, tight with anger. We're not critiquing them, Rodriguez said with a slight smile. We're explaining why they won't work against us. Lieutenant Rodriguez walked to where one of the holographic displays still showed a Zephyrian fleet attack. Look at this formation. You spread your ships in a wide intimidation pattern to maximize visual impact. Great for scaring civilians, terrible for actual combat. Any decent military force would concentrate fire on your lead ships and break your formation in minutes. Dr. Carter activated her small device, projecting her own holographic display. I've been analyzing your conquest patterns. Interesting data points emerge when you chart them chronologically. Her display showed a map of the galaxy armed with conquered systems marked in red. You always attack isolated systems first. You avoid any species that has formed alliances or mutual defense pacts. You choose targets based on their inability to fight back, not on strategic value. Of course we choose strategic targets, Vextara protested from somewhere in the chamber. No, you choose easy targets, Morrison corrected. There's a difference. Strategic targeting would involve going after your strongest opponent first to eliminate threats. You've done the opposite. You've systematically avoided anyone who might actually fight back. Elder Mordoon was quiet for a long moment. Then his ancient voice filled the chamber. You believe you could fight back successfully. We know we could, Walsh said matter-of-factly. Your own records prove it. How so? Morrison activated controls on the holographic display, manipulating the images to show a tactical analysis. Every species you've conquered made the same mistake. They tried to defend everything at once. They spread their forces thin trying to protect civilian populations. Classic prey animal thinking. Humans wouldn't make that mistake, Rodriguez added. We'd evacuate civilians and concentrate our military forces. We'd trade territory for time while we analyzed your capabilities and developed countermeasures. You would abandon your civilians? Veltar asked, sounding shocked. Temporarily, Carter explained, to keep them alive. Humans learned long ago that sometimes you have to give ground to win a war. We'd evacuate threatened populations, then hit your supply lines and support infrastructure. Morrison continued the analysis. Your ships are built for intimidation, not efficiency. They're too large, too slow, too dependent on fear tactics. Against an enemy that isn't afraid, they're actually quite vulnerable. You have 4 small ships and primitive weapons, Kylent said. We have thousands of vessels and technology beyond your understanding. You have thousands of vessels designed to terrorize civilians, Walsh corrected. We have thousands of years of experience fighting enemies with superior technology. Do you know what humans do when facing a stronger opponent? Surrender? Suggested. The insectoid counselor hopefully. We cheat, Rodriguez said with a grin. We use unconventional tactics, asymmetrical warfare, psychological operations. We turn your strengths against you. Dr. Carter brought up another display. For example, your command structure depends on fear-based hierarchies. Very efficient for controlling conquered populations, but it has a critical weakness. What weakness? Morgan demanded. It's brittle, Morrison explained. Remove the top few levels of command, and the entire system collapses. Your subordinates are trained to follow orders, not to think independently. Kill your commanders, and your fleets become helpless. Our commanders are well protected, Vextara said. Are they? Carter asked. Protected against conventional attacks, maybe. But humans specialize in unconventional approaches. Sabotage, infiltration, information warfare, biological weapons, psychological operations. We would turn your own conquered species against you, Walsh added. Most of them probably hate you already. They just need someone to show them how to fight back effectively. Rodriguez was studying the fleet formations in the historical records. Plus, your military doctrine hasn't evolved in centuries. You've been using the same tactics against the same type of opponent for 300 years. No innovation, no adaptation. That makes you predictable. Predictability is death in warfare, Morrison said quietly. Any human military academy student could devise countermeasures for your standard attack patterns. Elder Mordoon's voice, when it came, was very quiet. You speak of warfare. 3 weeks had passed since Lyra and Nova came to live with Jake. The small apartment above the garage had become their shared home, though it took time for all of them to get used to the new arrangement. Jake had moved his bed into the living room and given the bedroom to the two women. They had protested at first, but he explained that human men and women usually didn't sleep in the same room unless they were married. This seemed to confuse them, but they accepted it. Every morning, Jake would wake up to find that Lyra had already prepared breakfast. She used ingredients from his kitchen, but somehow made them taste better than anything he had ever cooked. Nova would be standing by the window, watching the street for any signs of danger. You don't have to guard me while I sleep, Jake had told her many times. Someone must, Nova always replied. There are people who wish you harm. She was right about that. Agent Crawford and her team had been back twice, always asking questions and making threats. There were also reporters who tried to get interviews and curious people who just wanted to see the aliens up close. But Jake was learning that Lyra and Nova were more than just bodyguards or servants. They were intelligent, funny, and surprisingly easy to talk to once they relaxed around him. Lyra loved to learn about human culture. She asked endless questions about everything from music to movies to the way humans fell in love. She had started reading books from the local library, staying up late to finish stories about human heroes and adventures. Nova was more practical. She studied human fighting techniques and watched military documentaries. She was fascinated by how humans had developed so many different ways to solve problems through conflict and cooperation. Your species is very strange, Nova said one evening as they watched the news together. You fight each other constantly, but you also help each other in times of trouble. Yeah, we're complicated like that, Jake said. Is it different on your world? Zephyrians value harmony above all things. We rarely fight among ourselves. That sounds peaceful. It is, but perhaps too peaceful. We had become soft. When our reactors started to fail, we panicked. We had forgotten how to solve problems under pressure. Jake thought about that. Is that why your people sent you to me? To learn how humans handle pressure? Nova looked at him with her large black eyes. Perhaps. Or perhaps they simply wanted to honor a debt. Jake was starting to understand that there was more to this arrangement than just following galactic law. The Zephyrians were learning from him just as much as he was learning from them. One afternoon, Jake was working on a particularly difficult engine repair when Lyra asked if she could help. He was about to say no, as he always did, when he realized she wasn't asking to serve him. She was asking to learn. Sure, he said. Hand me that socket wrench. Lyra gave him the tool, but she also asked what it was for. Jake found himself explaining how the engine worked, how the parts fit together, how to diagnose problems by listening to the sounds it made. "This is similar to healing," Lyra said. "You listen to the body, find what is wrong, and fix it." "I never thought of it that way, but you're right." Lyra's healing abilities were amazing to watch. When Mrs. Peterson's grandson fell off his bicycle and scraped his knee badly, Lyra had asked if she could help. She placed her hands over the wound, and a soft blue light had come from her palms. In minutes, the cut was completely healed, leaving only smooth skin. "How do you do that?" Jake had asked. "I encourage the body to remember how it should be," Lyra explained. "All living things want to be whole. Sometimes they just need help remembering." Nova's abilities were different but equally impressive. She could move faster than any human, and her strength was incredible. But more than that, she seemed to understand tactics and strategy in a way that amazed Jake. When a group of angry protesters had surrounded the garage, shouting about aliens taking over the world, Nova had calmly analyzed their formation and found the best way to get Jake to safety without anyone getting hurt. "You see the 3 men by the truck?" she had whispered to Jake. "They are the leaders. The others will follow them. If we can get past those 3, the crowd will part." She had been right. They had walked through the crowd without incident, Nova somehow knowing exactly where to step and when to move. But it was the quiet moments that Jake treasured most. In the evenings, after the garage was closed and dinner was finished, the 3 of them would sit together and talk. Jake would tell them stories about his childhood, about his time in the Earth Defense Corps, about his dreams for the future. Lyra and Nova would share stories about Zephyria Prime, about their families, about the beautiful crystal cities and the floating gardens that grew in the sky. They painted pictures with words of a world that sounded like something from a fairy tale. "Do you miss home?" Jake asked one night. "Sometimes," Lyra admitted. "But this is an adventure. How many Zephyrians get to see another world?" "I miss the training grounds," Nova said. "But I am learning new things here. Human ways of thinking are very different from ours." Jake was learning too. He was learning that friendship could cross the space between worlds. That understanding didn't require speaking the same language or having the same color skin. He was also learning that he cared about them more than he had expected. When Agent Crawford came around asking questions, Jake felt protective of Lyra and Nova. When curious people stared at them on the street, Jake wanted to shield them from the attention. And sometimes, late at night when he thought they were asleep, Jake wondered what would happen when their debt was finally paid. Would they go back to Zephyria Prime? Would he ever see them again? The thought of losing them made him realize how much they had come to mean to him. Everything changed on a Thursday afternoon in late October. Jake was under the hood of a car when he heard tires screeching outside. He looked up to see a black van stop in front of the garage. 6 men in tactical gear jumped out, all carrying weapons. "Jake!" Nova shouted from inside the garage. "Get down!" The men rushed toward the garage, but Nova was already moving. She grabbed 2 wrenches from Jake's toolbox and threw them with incredible accuracy. The tools struck 2 of the men in the hands, making them drop their weapons. Lyra appeared beside Jake, pulling him behind the car for cover. "These are not government agents," she said. "They are private soldiers." "Who are they?" "People who want to study us," Nova called out as she fought with 3 men at once. Despite being outnumbered, she was winning. Her speed and strength were too much for normal humans to handle. One of the attackers pulled out a strange device that looked like a metal net. He threw it at Nova, and when it touched her, electricity crackled across its surface. Nova cried out and fell to the ground, trapped. "Nova!" Jake shouted. He started to run toward her, but Lyra held him back. "It is a trap," she said. "They want you to come out." But Jake couldn't watch Nova suffer. He grabbed the tire iron and charged at the man holding the device that controlled the net. The man was so focused on Nova that he didn't see Jake coming. Until it was too late, Jake hit him hard across the back of the head, and the man dropped the control device. The electric net stopped working, and Nova was able to break free. Together, the three of them fought off the remaining attackers. When it was over, 5 men were unconscious, and 1 had run away. Who were they? Jake asked, breathing hard. Picked up one of their weapons and examined it. Corporate soldiers. Someone paid them to capture us. There will be more, Lyra said quietly. Word is spreading about our abilities. People will want to use us. Jake looked at his garage. The windows were broken, tools were scattered everywhere, and there were bullet holes in the walls. His simple life was truly over now. We can't stay here, he said. It's not safe anymore. Where will we go? Nova asked. Jake thought about it. He had some money saved up, and he knew people in other cities who might help him. But more than that, he realized he didn't want to run anymore. Maybe it's time to stop hiding, he said. Maybe it's time to fight back. Lyra and Nova looked at him with surprise. You want to fight? Nova asked. I want to protect you. Both of you. And I can't do that by running away. For the first time since they had arrived, Jake saw something new in their eyes. Not duty, not honor, but something deeper. Something that looked like love. Then we will fight together, Lyra said. As partners, Nova added. Jake smiled. As family. Jake stood in his small apartment and looked at Lyra and Nova. The 2 Zephyrian women were examining everything with curious eyes. His tiny living space suddenly felt even smaller with 3 people in it. So, Jake said, not sure how to begin. I guess we need to figure out how this is going to work. Lyra set down her small pack and looked around. Where would you like us to sleep, Master Jake? First rule, Jake said quickly. Don't call me Master. Just Jake is fine. Nova frowned. But you are our master. It would be disrespectful to. I'm not your master, Jake interrupted. I'm just a guy who fixes cars. You're my guests, not my servants. The 2 women exchanged glances. Jake could see they were confused by his attitude. You have 1 bedroom, Lyra observed. Where would you like us to set up our sleeping area? Jake rubbed his forehead. He hadn't thought about the practical problems. You can have the bedroom. I'll sleep on the couch. That is not acceptable, Nova said firmly. We cannot take your bed while you sleep on furniture meant for sitting. Look, I'm trying to be a good host here. Take the bed. A good host would not force his attendants to dishonor him by taking his place of rest. Lyra said softly. Jake realized this was going to be more complicated than he thought. Every time he tried to treat them like normal people, they seemed to think he was doing something wrong. Okay, new plan, he said. We'll all figure this out together. But right now, I need to go to work. I have a business to run. Then we will come with you, Nova said. That's not necessary. You can stay here and rest. We cannot leave your side, Lyra explained. We are bound to protect and serve you. How can we do that if we are not with you? Jake sighed. He could see this was going to be a long day. An hour later, Jake was in his garage trying to work on Mrs. Peterson's truck while Lyra and Nova watched his every move. Every time he reached for a tool, one of them would try to hand it to him. When he bent down to look under the hood, Nova would position herself to guard the garage door. You really don't need to do this, Jake said for the 10th time. It is our duty, Lyra replied, handing him a wrench he didn't need. The bell above the door rang, and Tommy Barnes walked in. He stopped dead when he saw Lyra and Nova. Jake? Tommy said, staring at the 2 blue-skinned women. Who are your friends? Jake had been dreading this moment. Tommy, meet Lyra and Nova. They're visiting from out of town. Tommy's eyes went wide. Out of town? Jake, they're blue. And they have markings on their skin that are glowing? It's complicated, Jake said. Are they the aliens from the ship? The ones all over the news? Before Jake could answer, 3 more people walked into the garage. Mrs. Wilson, the mailman, and a teenager Jake didn't recognize, all crowded around the doorway, staring at Lyra and Nova. "Oh my," Mrs. Wilson whispered. "They're so beautiful." The teenager was taking pictures with his phone. "This is going to get so many likes," he said. Jake felt his privacy disappearing. "Everyone, please, are you really from another planet?" the mailman asked. Lyra stepped forward and bowed slightly. "We are from Zephyria Prime. We are here to serve Jake Mitchell, who saved our world." The crowd of people gasped. Jake wanted to hide under the truck. "Jake saved your world?" Tommy asked. "Our Jake? The mechanic?" "He is a great hero," Nova said proudly. "He prevented the destruction of our civilization." More people were gathering outside the garage. Jake could see them pointing and whispering. Some were taking pictures. This was exactly what he had been afraid of. "Everyone needs to leave," Jake said firmly. "I have work to do, but Jake, we want to hear about out." The crowd slowly left, but Jake could see them gathering across the street. His quiet life in Pine Valley was officially over. "You should not have sent them away," Nova said. "They wish to honor you." "I don't want to be honored. I want to be left alone." "That is not possible," Lyra said gently. "You are a hero, whether you wish to be or not." Jake was about to argue when a black car pulled up outside. 3 people in dark suits got out and walked into the garage. Jake recognized the type immediately. "Government agents." "Mr. Mitchell," the lead agent said, showing a badge. "I'm Agent Lisa Crawford, FBI. We need to talk." "About what?" "About your alien friends here. We have some questions." Jake looked at Lyra and Nova. They had moved closer to him, and he could see Nova's hand moving towards something on her belt. "What kind of questions?" Jake asked. "We need to understand their technology, their capabilities, their intentions. For national security purposes." "Their intentions are to help me fix cars," Jake said. "That's it." Agent Crawford smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "Mr. Mitchell, these beings represent an unprecedented opportunity for scientific advancement. Surely you understand the importance of cooperation." "I understand that they're people, not lab rats." "They're aliens, Mr. Mitchell. We need to study them." Nova took a step forward. "We will not be studied." Agent Crawford's hand moved toward her weapon. "That's not your choice to make." Suddenly, Nova moved faster than Jake thought possible. In one smooth motion, she disarmed Agent Crawford and had the woman's own gun pointed at her. "I said we will not be studied," Nova repeated calmly. The other 2 agents reached for their weapons, but Lyra raised her hand. A soft blue light came from her palm, and both agents froze in place. "What did you do to them?" Agent Crawford demanded. "They are temporarily paralyzed," Lyra explained. "It will wear off in a few minutes. No permanent harm." Jake stared at the 2 women. He had known they were advanced, but seeing their abilities in action was different. "You need to let them go," Jake said. "They threatened us," Nova replied. "They threatened you, and now you've made it worse. Let them go." Nova looked at him for a long moment, then handed Agent Crawford her weapon back. Lyra lowered her hand, and the other agents stumbled as they regained control of their bodies. "This isn't over," Agent Crawford said, backing toward the door. "We'll be watching you." After they left, Jake looked at Lyra and Nova. "We need to talk about this." "We protected you," Nova said. "That is our duty. You can't attack federal agents. You'll make enemies we can't handle." "Then what would you have us do when they threaten you?" Jake thought about it. "The agents would be back, probably with more people and better weapons." His neighbors were already gossiping about his alien house guest. Soon, reporters would figure out where he lived. "We might need to leave Pine Valley," he said. "Where will we go?" Lyra asked. Jake looked around his small garage. He had worked hard to build this simple life, but it was already falling apart. Maybe it was time to accept that his past would always follow him. I don't know yet, but we can't stay here. It's not safe for any of us. That evening, Jake sat on his couch while Lyra and Nova insisted on preparing dinner. They had found ingredients in his kitchen and were making something that smelled amazing but looked like nothing he had ever seen before. "Jake," Lyra said as she worked, "why do you resist our service? On our world, it will be considered a great honor. Because on my world, people are equals. Nobody should have to serve somebody else. But you saved our entire civilization. How? Can we be equal to someone who did something so great?" Jake thought about how to explain it. "Because I'm not great. I'm just a guy who was in the right place at the right time. I did what anyone would have done." Nova looked up from the stove. "That is not true. Our engineers could not solve the problem. Our wisest leaders could not find a way. Only you could see what needed to be done. That doesn't make me better than you." "No," Lyra agreed. "But it makes you someone worth serving." Jake realized he wasn't going to win this argument. Their entire culture was built around honor and duty. They genuinely believed that serving him was the right thing to do. "Okay," he said. "But if you're going to stay with me, we do this my way. You're not servants, you're partners. We work together." "Partners?" Nova asked. "Equals. We help each other." The two women considered this. "This is acceptable," Lyra said finally. "We will be your partners in honor," Jake smiled. It wasn't exactly what he had wanted, but it was a start. Maybe they could figure out how to make this work after all. Outside, he could see cars driving slowly past his building. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, at least, they had found a way to understand each other. Jake stood at his window and watched the alien ship grow larger in the night sky. It was definitely Zephyrian, with its smooth curves and blue-silver metal that seemed to glow in the darkness. His hands were shaking as he held the phone to his. "Air, Colonel Martinez, you need to listen to me," Jake said. "There's a Zephyrian ship approaching Pine Valley right now." "Jake, are you sure?" "Maybe it's just a military craft, or, sir, I know what their ships look like. This is them." There was silence on the other end of the line. Jake could hear Martinez moving around, probably getting dressed and ready to make some very important phone calls. "Okay, Jake, I believe you. Stay where you are and don't do anything stupid. I'm calling this in right now." The line went dead. Jake put his phone down and continued watching the ship. It was moving slowly, almost carefully, as if the pilot didn't want to scare anyone. That was good. The Zephyrians were peaceful people, but their technology was so advanced that even a small mistake could cause big problems. By morning, Pine Valley had been turned upside down. Military vehicles filled the streets, and soldiers in full gear stood at every corner. News trucks arrived from 3 different states, and reporters with cameras were trying to interview anyone who would talk to them. Jake stayed in his apartment, but he could see everything from his window. The alien ship had landed in the big field outside town, the same field where the high school football team practiced. It was about the size of a small office building, sitting there like it belonged. Around 10 in the morning, someone knocked on Jake's door. He opened it to find Colonel Martinez, along with 2 other military officers Jake didn't recognize. "Jake, we need to talk," Martinez said. They came into his small apartment, and Martinez introduced the other officers. General Thompson was in charge of the military response, and Dr. Sarah Walsh was a specialist in alien contact situations. "Jake, we've been monitoring their communications," Dr. Walsh said. "They're asking specifically for you. They want to meet with the human called Jake Mitchell." "Did they say why?" "No, but they've been very polite about it. They're not making demands or threats. They just want to talk to you." Jake looked out. His window at the ship again. He had hoped his time with the Zephyrians was finished, but apparently they had other ideas. "What do you want me to do? Meet with them?" General Thompson said. "Find out what they want. You're the only person on Earth who has experience with their people. An hour later, Jake found himself walking across the field toward the alien ship. A small group of soldiers followed him, but they stayed back at a safe distance. The ship was even more impressive up close, with no visible seams or bolts. It looked like it had been grown rather than built. A section of the ship's hull slid open silently, and 3 figures stepped out. Jake recognized them immediately as Zephyrians. They were tall and thin, with blue-silver skin that had a slight shine to it. Their faces were similar to humans, but their eyes were larger and completely black. The one in the middle wore robes that marked him as a high-ranking official. Jake had learned enough about Zephyrian culture to know this was someone important. "Greetings. Jake Mitchell," the Zephyrian said in perfect English. "I am Elder Counselor Veltar. We have traveled far to speak with you." "It's good to see you again, Elder Counselor," Jake replied, trying to remember the proper way to address the Zephyrian leaders. "Though I'm surprised you came all this way." "We came because we have a debt to repay. You saved our world, Jake Mitchell. You saved millions of lives. According to the ancient laws that govern all civilized species in the galaxy, we must honor this debt." Jake had a bad feeling about where this conversation was going. "I don't need anything from you. I helped because it was the right thing to do. Yes, and that is exactly why the debt must be repaid. You asked for nothing, expected nothing, and gave everything. The Universal Peacekeeping Alliance has laws about such things. When one being saves an entire civilization, that civilization must offer their most precious gifts." Veltar gestured to the 2 other Zephyrians who had come with him. Jake now noticed that they were both female and much younger than the Elder Counselor. "These are Lyra and Nova," Veltar continued. "They are among the finest of our people. Lyra is a healer and scholar, trained in the medical arts and the deep wisdom of our ancestors. Nova is a warrior, skilled in combat and tactical knowledge. According to galactic law, they are now your attendants." Jake stared at the 2 young women. They both looked to be about 19 years old in human terms, though he knew that aging worked differently for Zephyrians. One had silver blue skin, with delicate markings that seemed to glow softly. The other had darker blue skin with golden patterns that looked like tattoos. "My what?" Jake asked. "Your attendants," Veltar repeated. "They will serve you in whatever way you require. They will protect you, care for you, and assist you in all things. This is their honor and their duty." Jake felt sick to his stomach. "I don't want servants. I don't want anyone to serve me." "It is not a matter of what you want," Veltar said gently. "It is a matter of galactic law. These laws have kept peace between hundreds of species for thousands of years. To refuse this gift would be considered a grave insult to our people. And if I insult you, then our people will be honor-bound to consider you an enemy. This could lead to conflict between our species. Many would die." Jake looked at the 2 young women. They hadn't spoken yet, but he could see intelligence in their large black eyes. They were people, not property. The idea of them serving him made him feel terrible. "This is crazy," Jake said. "I can't accept this." The one with silver blue skin stepped forward. "Please, Jake Mitchell," she said in a voice like music. "I am Lyra. I understand your reluctance, but you must understand our position. We have volunteered for this honor. To refuse us would bring shame not only to our people, but to us personally." The other one, Nova, also stepped forward. "I am Nova. I trained my entire life to be worthy of serving a great hero. If you send us away, we can never return home. We will have failed in our duty." Jake felt trapped. He didn't want servants, but he also didn't want to start a war or ruin these 2 women's lives. "How long would this arrangement last?" he asked. "Until the debt is paid in full," Veltar said. "That could be months, years, or even decades. It depends on the magnitude of the service you provided." Jake ran his hands through his hair. This was exactly the kind of complicated situation he had hoped to avoid by coming home to Pine Valley. Can I have some time to think about it? Of course. But understand that Lyra and Nova cannot return to our ship. They are now bound to you, by law and by honor. They will remain here regardless of your decision. Jake looked at the two young women again. They were standing straight and proud, but he could see worry in their eyes. They were as trapped in this situation as he was. Okay, Jake said finally. I accept. But I want to make something clear. I don't want servants. If they're going to stay with me, they'll be guests, not slaves. Veltar smiled, showing teeth that were slightly sharper than human teeth. You may call them whatever you wish. The important thing is that the debt is being honored. Jake looked at Lyra and Nova. Do you two have any belongings? Only what we carry, Lyra said, indicating a small pack on her back. Then I guess you're coming home with me. As they walked back across the field, Jake wondered what he had gotten himself into. Behind them, the Zephyrian ship was already preparing to leave. Elder Counselor Veltar had made it clear that this was Jake's responsibility now. Jake looked at the two alien women walking beside him. They were beautiful in their own way, but they were also completely out of place in small-town America. He had no idea how to explain this to his neighbors, his family, or even himself. This is going to be interesting, he muttered. Nova looked at him with her large black eyes. Yes, she agreed, it is.